Good afternoon, everyone. Uh, it's a pleasure and privilege to moderate this session. I would like to invite my co-panelists, Mr. Sanjay Anandam, Mr. Nitin Navandar, and Dushyant Sridharji onto the dais. Welcome, gentlemen, to TGS 2022. This session is about catalyzing cultural entrepreneurship in India. Cultural entrepreneurship is about monetizing the mysticism of India by creating products and services such as Ayurveda, yoga, or even Darjeeling tea. Products or services which are not merely the produce of India, but products and services which signify Indianness and enhance India's soft power before the global audience, while simultaneously creating employment for millions of people at home. We have created many such social enterprises in our country, such as Fab India, Patanjali, Jaipur Carpets, and many others. We have an eminent panel now to discuss what it takes to create a thriving economy of such curated companies, which takes this India's soft power and Indianness to the global audience. To my left, I have Mr. Sanjay Anandram. Sanjay has been on the boards of many large Indian companies such as Quest Corp, among others. He's a cross-border VC. Currently, he's the co-founder of NICE.org. NICE stands for enterprises, India's enterprises, and I have on my right Mr. Nitin Navandar. Nitin is the co-founder of I Am Avatar. It is India's first digital platform for religious and spiritual purposes. To my extreme right is Mr. Dushyant ji. Dushyant ji is a noted scholar. He propagates Sanatan Dharma. He has more than 3,000 discourses across 23 countries and has a follower base of 25 million followers on YouTube. Welcome.
Thank you, Abhijit. Thanks, everybody. The organization I co-founded is called Network of Indian Cultural Enterprises, NICE. Think of it very simply as a tie for cultural businesses. And the focus is equally on business as much as it is on culture. So I'll just stop now and carry on.
Thank you. So, Nitin, my first question is to you. We have heard of fintech, we have heard of consumer tech, we have never heard of faith tech. Correct. So, are you the first faith tech company in the world which is creating an ecosystem? And what was your motivation to start that?
Yeah, first of all, good afternoon, Abhijit, and to my fellow co-panelists and to everyone here. Yes, we are a pioneer of faith tech. You know, we've seen, and I say this to everyone, in the last so many years, India has seen growth in every industry, every sector. We have seen how the farmers have been taken care of, how we've, ensured that the army men are also respected and given a good life. But nobody has ever thought about, India being the land of civilization. Civilization happened here. Religion and spirituality exist in every nook and corner of India. But nobody has ever thought about the people who are associated with this. Every touch point in India is religious or spiritual, and the people who work day and night through it. So this is where I Am Avatar was conceived, as a platform which can look at transform the lives of people who are associated with religion and spiritual ecosystem. And in turn, I would like to say that relating to the topic, it's so apt because if you look at it, even though we were ruled by the Britishers for hundreds of years, what they could not take away with them is our heritage, our culture, and the talent which India always had and always will have. So when we started post-independence era, we've developed so many industries, so many sectors, and we were really amazed at why nobody has looked at what we always had within. When you talk about spirituality, we always talk about what is within. And I think this is where, in spite of developing multi-billion-dollar businesses, nobody has seen within what exists in India, in every city, in every town, in every person who is actually contributing and can create a cultural entrepreneurship, a thriving cultural entrepreneurship in India. This is where, as a concept, I Am Avatar is bringing on as a digital-first platform which will connect every worship place, heritage site, every person who is a granthi, a pandit, an astrologer, a numerologist, a vastu expert, every store which sells religious and spiritual items, every travel and tour operator, every dharamshala which is around a pilgrimage place on a digital platform. And you know what cultural entrepreneurship also needs is empowerment. And this is where we are building a partner app or a web app for the partners themselves where they can organize themselves. So I think what we need really to catalyze cultural entrepreneurship in India is beyond what we have, we need to nurture it. And since digital is the answer today, we need to digitize the complete religion and spiritual ecosystem. And along with that, what needs is empowerment. Imagine a tribal person along the coastline of Ganga somewhere sitting and he's producing a marvelous product. But how would you access it? How would you buy it? There is no platform to do so. So I Am Avatar has actually joined hands with Namami Gange as a digital partner to digitalize every ghat, make India as a forefront in terms of digitalizing every touch point of religion and spirituality, starting with the 2,525 kilometers coastline of River Ganga. And there is so much happening with the projects being done by the government right now, infrastructure improving. I think the time is right to really promote cultural entrepreneurship. And I'm sure after this, all around you, you will see so many cultural entrepreneurs who are there, who can thrive, provided they are given a platform.
So clearly, you're not building just a platform, you're trying and building an ecosystem.
Absolutely, and that's why we have coined this word Faith Tech. I was fortunate enough to attend the last tourism conference, which was a congregation of all the states and UT's tourism ministers along with the tourism ministry in Dharamshala. And there we've introduced the word Faith Tech. So move over FinTech, EdTech, it's time now for Faith Tech in India and to really promote the religious and spiritual tourism in a way that could bring not only tourists to India, but also show Indians that there are more places in India and more places to actually achieve what they want as religion and spirituality.
Very interesting. So Sanjay ji, you have had a global corporate career. You are currently devoting yourself to build Brand India, devising products from its India's rural heartland to the streets of Paris and London. What are the ecosystem challenges that you see that led to the formation of NICE?
Great, thanks. You know, whenever we've looked at cultural businesses, we don't hear the word business. We only hear the word culture. When we hear the word culture, we only think religion and spirituality. But that's not just what culture is, right? Culture is much larger concept. And so whether it is food, whether it's beverages, whether it's the artisans, the craftspeople, and you talked about heritage tourism, etc. All of these encompass culture, both tangible and intangible. Our goal is to create a body of entrepreneurs who are going to build successful branded businesses that are based on India's cultural artifacts, marry the understanding of markets, users, design, intellectual property, digital platforms, digital marketing, etc., with the creators, those who fashion the arts, the crafts, and the food, and the yoga, and things like that. What led to us is every country around the world. How are countries known? Countries are known by brands. Levi's jeans, McDonald's, right? Gucci bags, Ferrari. These are all brands. They come out of a ethos, a culture of a particular geography. We have created, let's say, yoga. Yoga is a $100 billion global industry, and the strange thing is that we do not have a single Indian yoga brand. We will happily pay $7 at Starbucks on Lexington Avenue to have turmeric latte, but haldi doodh we will have no real value for. Diwali comes along, we are busy distributing chocolates. What about building our own mithai shops, our sweets, building the brands, which is brands, packaging, the entire customer experience has to change. That mindset shift is what we are attempting to do at NICE. So our focus is the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur makes change happen. We are going to surround the entrepreneur with funding. We are going to have partnerships. There's policy intervention, and there's going to be research. So 5 pillars to create this ecosystem for catalyzing cultural entrepreneurship. That is the objective. And countries will only be known by the successful brands and entities that they create. Right now, we export, let's say, cotton. Cotton is raw produce. We also make denim. Arvind Mills, for example, is a large exporter of denim. But who makes the money? Who owns the brand? It is Levi's, right? So understanding that shift, that journey, is what is important. And our policies, everything else, has to fundamentally change, and it will change if the change happens here. Our approach has largely been focused on the dharma and moksha aspect of life. But we have forgotten that an integral part of that journey is the artha part as well, right? It's not one at the cost of the other. There's a natural progression that has to occur. And that is the process that we want to be able to kindle, right? And that, I don't want to hog up more time, but effectively that's what it is. So if you guys are interested, please look up niceorg.in. It's a not-for-profit entity, by the way, like TIE.
Very emphatically spoken. I couldn't agree more on the tectonic shift we need to make in our own minds when we need to adapt to various products. Coming to shift in our mindset. Dushanji, you have passed out from BITS. You are an engineer. You started your career with TCS. Over a period of time, you have transitioned yourself to be what you are today. There are many in the audience, students, professionals, who are at the cusp of that transition, but are mentally not able to make that pivot to be an entrepreneur or a full-time entrepreneur. From your own experience, how would you recommend that we embrace change management so that we can live a life of more fulfillment than of regret?
Namaskaram, Abhijit. Namaskaram to my fellow panelists, and namaskaram to the August gathering here. First of all, to ensure that there is a change and people do accept that change, in the humblest of my opinions, I feel that there should be a sakshatkara. The person should believe that I have this skill. The belief in oneself is the first step. And ensuring that the belief that I have in me is equally believed by the people around me. So that may happen, that may blossom the way it naturally comes. So in my case, I am very thankful to the Vice Chancellor at BITS Pilani, where I studied, to my mentor while I was an IAS fellow at the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. So this transition happens very organically, one. And second thing is, when this change has to be accepted by the people around you, it has to be the way Hanuman, when he flew from Bharatadesham to Lanka, he captured the minds of the impediments that he came across, be it the mountain called Mainaka, be it Surasa, the Nagamata, or Simhika, the demoness. So he tried to instill his qualities in them. So that's very, very important. And so on a very lighter vein, so when I was working in the corporate and I was also engaging to be a public speaker in the scriptures, in the Indic scriptures, I was doing dance productions, I was taking people on heritage tours. But all of this worked well. But I was telling my wife that she works in the credit risk advisory. So she works for a full-time job. I'm into too many other things. So the first deal that I had with my wife was she has to work till 60 if she lives till 60. So that was a very gentle, womanly agreement that she signed. And so when you keep the ecosystem around you cognizant of what they have to do, probably I think this change management is quite acceptable and adorable to an extent as well.
Very interesting. You're a lucky man to have such a accepting wife. So, Sanjay ji, you spoke about vada pav. Yeah. To build brand India, we will have to try and if not replace, at least supplement vada pav along with the McD burger. I personally don't see any difference why a Goan Feni should be restricted to just within Goa and not allowed to be equivalent of British Scotch. How do we productize our own produce at scale and speed so that we can be what we aspire to be in terms of Indian branded goods?
Thanks. Thanks for that. You know, like I said, all change starts from here. For you talked about Goan Feni. Goan Feni is classified as a local brew in Goa, which is why Feni is not available outside Goa. So everybody knows about it, but nobody can procure it. And that's one of the interesting, idiotic things that we do on a regular basis by way of policy. If you look at the evolution, we are the world's largest consumer of whiskey by volume. If you go to Scotland, and you will see how, and you look at the history of Scotch whiskey, it was all created in illegal mom and pop stills in people's backyards. No different than how Feni used to be produced. It so happened that the English conquered the world, and because the Englishmen drank Scotch whiskey, all of us thought it was the drink of choice and an aspirational drink. Then they packaged it, they bottled it, and they marketed the heck out of it. Johnny Walker, keep walking, all of us know that, but it's just an ad, right? It's like perfume. It's all here, the image. We can't make out the difference between single malt and a mixed blend, but we all take great pride in talking about those brands. That's the narrative, the storytelling, the brand building. That is the stuff that we need to learn. It's exactly no different than being able to export cotton versus being able to export Levi's jeans. You talked about vada pav. Vada pav and McDonald's, what's the difference? One is scale, it's organization, it's brand building, it's technology, it is having the right people, etc., etc. No different than in building any other entrepreneurial or any other business. We have not thought about this. We have not thought about our cultural assets from the standpoint of them being monetized. We have thought about it from preservation. We have thought about it from protection. We have not thought about it from a promotion standpoint. Promotion does not mean having a festival of India or some other festival, some other place, and having some exhibition where some people come and show stuff. Promotion means building solid branded products, services, experiences where consumers will want to part with their money willingly and keep buying time after time after time. The question to ask is, why does India have just one Fab India? We need 100 of them in multiple categories, right? And it all starts with asking these questions and then working hard to make sure that the entrepreneurs are able to do it. And it's possible today, thanks to a new breed of entrepreneurs, new demographic of consumption, availability and accessibility of technology, of digital platforms, understanding of design, understanding of intellectual property, etc., etc., etc. All of this coming together is critical. Just like the IT industry and the tech sector moved. So I spent about 25, 30 years in that area. Exactly like back in the day, body shopping happened. We are today, if you replace body shopping with some highly skilled person doing embroidery on a garment, right? But the garment is sold by Gucci for $500 or $1,000. The chap making the embroidery gets a few dollars an hour. No different than how the body shopping thing moved. Today, we have a Fresh Desk and a Zoho. That is the transition, metaphorically, that we need to be able to make. And it starts with the belief, the point that Dushyant made, it's the antaha prerna that has to emerge from within us.
So Nitin, in your last, you just mentioned that you are trying and building an ecosystem. So part of that ecosystem is much before we embarked the startups in our country in Tier 1 towns were fueled by private equity money or internet-led boom. Our temple towns and temples have been the catalyst for MSMEs. You are creating an ecosystem, which is, in a way, I believe, tying the unheard of micro-entrepreneurs in the small cities to the capitalists in the big cities. do you see yourself playing that role very actively to give more space to the informal economy of India?
Absolutely. We've seen what technology can do. Last 2 years, I think the adaptation of technology in India compared to any part of the world is surreal. 2000, if you go back in the time 2015, 16, if anybody would have told you that today, in digital transactions, what India does in a day or in an hour might be the yearly digital transaction volume of a country somewhere in the world. So when technology comes in, it can change. And we export so many billions of dollars of technology from India, but I feel we are not utilizing it within. And imagine when technology meets faith, what can happen? That's exactly what Faith Tech is all about. I feel that, creating an ecosystem, empowering, every person who is uprooted, who's part of India at the every tier 1, tier 2 town, they can become cultural entrepreneurship provided we give them the platform. So this is where, as IIM Avatar, what we are trying to do is recognize this each Pandit, a Granthi who has never seen a digital presence in the world, get all the dharamshalas on board, get every person who has been connected with, even in Temple Town. I'll give an example. When we all travel across the world, we go to any place, we opt for a tour guide. The guide comes, maybe in his own Mercedes or a fancy car. He'll have a DSLR in his hand. He'll be suited, booted, and we pay him hundreds of dollars for the guide services. What happens in India? Just because the guy is not presentable, we negotiate with him, even though we can give much more, but we negotiate down from 500 rupees to 100 rupees. Although our guy knows multiple languages, he knows the place very well, but then we actually go by the presentation. So our idea is to actually promote our own people to become cultural entrepreneurs in themselves, giving them a platform, empower them so that they can see their reports, they can get feedback from their customers, they can be presented well, we will be training them on soft skills. This is where we have also joined with Namami Gange to train people on soft skills. Just fill the void which they lack today. We all of us have our strengths and weaknesses. So we are working on those weaknesses where we give them soft skills, we present them better, we give them a platform where they can come and register themselves for free and actually use that as an app. And that's what we have seen technology has done to all the apps today. And another point I would like to touch, Abhijit, is while, if I can continue using the word Faith Tech, hasn't been funded till date in a big way like any other industry has been. But the era we are in today, where there is value creation and where there is such empowerment and where people can actually create wealth together, I think you'll soon find that Faith Tech will multiply in numbers in terms of the growth of venture capitalists and business houses coming to fund them.
Interesting. Sridharji, coming to you, I have a conflict in my head. I am a capitalist by profession. I am a socialist by heart. During my teenage years, I have binged on the movie, one of the many movies called The Wolf of Wall Street, where Michael Douglas, as Gordon Gekko, proclaimed, "Greed is good." I believe greed is good, but the culture we come from does not adequately celebrate money making, perhaps even considers it as a lower pursuit. As Sanjay just mentioned, Artha, Dharma, and Moksha, are they to be seen in totality, or are they to be seen in isolation to be pursued at different stages of your life? This has very relevant context to all entrepreneurs here.
With respect to one aspect of your question, if everything should be looked through an integrated approach, all our subjects in the Vedic past have been looked in totality. So that said, with respect to Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, the Purusharthas, the one, when we go into Sri Mahabharatam, Krishna, who presented himself as an option to the Pandavas and gave away his army, his regiment to the Kauravas, wanted to adhere and practice dharma, which is one of the first Purusharthas. While he fought for the priceless gem called as Syamantakamani from the merchant of Dwaraka called as Satrajit, he was working towards creating an artha for his government. And it is the same Krishna who talks about Bhagavad Gita, Sarvopanishado Gavaha, Dugdha, Gopalanandanaha, the pathway to moksham, as Gita Charya in the later days of Mahabharata Yuddham. So one character is able to cater to dharmam, artham, and moksham. I don't have to mention about Kamam because he was the Manmatha of the Manmathas, is what Vishnu Puranam states. So there is one character who's able to imbibe all these aspects in him. So if at all there is a misnomer or a myth that Sanatana Dharma advocates only towards sannyas ashramam and is not towards artham, it's absolutely baseless because it can be corroborated through various Vedic sources that all these four are purusharthas. That said, when artha is gradually accumulated, there is one valid question that the Indic past raises. How are you going to spend the artha that you have accrued towards your society? So artha gathering is encouraged. Artha dispensing is equally encouraged. So that's a misnomer. That should be a myth buster if at all the society is looking towards that there is no artha aspect in Sanatana Dharma.
Thank you all. Thanks a lot. Sanjay ji, we are running out of time, but one aspect I think we need to cover is, we did speak about productization of India's produce. Also, however, there are certain services and experiences. For example, Louvre Museum in France alone attracts about 9.6 million footfalls a year. Compared to that, in India, the total international tourist arrival is less than 2x of it. Our museums are in a dilapidated state despite the great value we have. What do you think should be a few policy advocacy changes that we need to improve on our services or the experiential side of things to build brand India?
Thanks. So 1 minute and 36 seconds to answer that. Okay. So see, first of all, for something like tourism, I'll just stick to tourism. Tourism straddles multiple ministries, multiple domains, everything from ports to infrastructure to security to heritage buildings to logistics, travel, food, you name it, it covers everything. But look at the way our administration and ministries are organized. Each is a silo by itself because we haven't thought of tourism as a major national mission that is going to generate billions and billions of dollars worth of revenue and create tens of millions of jobs. If you go to Invest India website, they have a very nice blog there that says $500 billion from tourism with 50 million jobs. The bad news is nobody's answered how. And it will only happen if we think about this in an integrated manner. Essentially, a different version of Dushyant's point about thinking all of this in a holistic manner. And that's very, very critical. Because unless we think of this as a national scale mission, tourism is a national scale mission, I'm afraid that we will not have any real change occur. We'll be doing a band-aid approach pretty much everywhere.
Thank you. I think we are almost at the close of the session. I would like to conclude by saying that if we have to build brand India, we must be audacious in our goals. Because unless we are audacious enough, we will not be able to create an incredible India. One good aspect of our brand creation has been the World Yoga Day. That has been a huge diplomatic victory. We must keep up with it and focus on building more brands out of India. Thank you.